This video is about mastering mindfulness in the moment. Let me start with a quote. Mindfulness helps us freeze the frame so that we can become aware of our sensations and experiences as they are, without the distorting coloration of socially conditioned responses or habitual reactions. In last week's video, we looked at how to create new habits, how to transform our unconscious habit loops by identifying our triggers, by acknowledging our responses, and then choosing new ones, and identifying our rewards. And all of that requires that we be present in the moment, that we get conscious of our thoughts and about what's actually going on in our body, in our mind, in our world. In the end, what we think determines how we feel, and how we feel drives what we do. So thoughts create feelings, feelings drive actions, and actions produce results in the world. So if we want to change our actions, we really do have to come to a place where we can start to interrupt them. We can change them on purpose. James Joyce says, hold to the now, the here, through which all future plunges to the past. Let me say that again. Hold to the now, the here, through which all future plunges to the past. The present is the only moment we have to transform, to truly live. And most of us spend most of our lives on automatic pilot, not really living in the moment, just reacting unconsciously to everything that's going on. The present moment is our moment to transform. And so we do actually have to become conscious of it. As I said, we have to become aware of what we're thinking, how we're feeling, what we're actually doing in the world. Now, when it comes to changing habits, most of us start out by recognizing the unhelpful habits in retrospect. And that's okay. That's the way we all learn, right? We can look back after the event or at the end of the day or at a later time and say, what did I actually do there? What was my trigger? What was the response that I did? What reward did I get for doing that? And once we can acknowledge that and see it for what it is, we can then decide on purpose to practice a new response next time we have that same trigger. That's what we did last week. We talked about when trigger, I will, new response, and then have new reward, or even the same reward. But this is the process of transforming our habits, identifying the trigger, identifying what we're doing, and then choosing something new deliberately on purpose. Once again, it requires being mindful, being present enough to notice not in retrospect, but in the moment, what's actually going on. And what I love about it is with practice, you can recognize not only in the moment, but in advance. You can actually interrupt the existing habit routine. I wonder if you've ever noticed any of you becoming conscious, sort of halfway through something. Maybe I remember when I used to do, I would sit down with a bag of chips and go, I'll just have a few while I'm watching TV. I'm just having a couple. And all of a sudden, I'd wake up and realize, wow, the whole packet's, well, originally I would wake up and go, the packet's empty. Where did they all go? And after a little while, I'd be able to go, oh, okay, no, I'm eating these unconsciously. I can stop halfway through. And after a little while, I could interrupt it enough to go, actually, I'm not actually hungry. I don't need the chips. I'm just bored. So notice that with practice, we can not only interrupt and put the new habit in, we can stop, we could portion out, we could try something different, we could have a healthier option, but we could also start to interrupt the feeling. We could notice the feeling that we're having, in this case, boredom, and either allow that feeling, because do you know we don't have to actually respond to feelings? It is one of those triggers, but we don't have to respond. We can just allow them. Just allow those feelings to pass through us, to exist, to be there for a reason that tells us something important, and then to move on. Have you ever tried hanging on to a feeling? It's really hard. You go, oh, okay, I'm just hanging on to being really super excited. And then very quickly that wears off. Maybe you've noticed that when you allow your feelings to just flow through you, to just process them, rather than resisting them, they move on more quickly. With time and with practice, we can not only interrupt the action, but we can interrupt the feeling. How am I feeling? Do I need to respond to this? With even more practice, we can then decide, well, what would I like to feel on purpose? Can I choose feelings deliberately? Can I create them with my mind? And of course, with even more practice, we can start to interrupt our thoughts. We can notice the thought coming into our brain, and then we can decide to keep it and believe it or not. Now, I actually think of thoughts as a bit like clouds. There's just a sentence in our brain, and sometimes we'll see them coming in. It's a beautiful gift that we have as humans to be able to step back and observe our thinking, observe what's actually going on in our brain, in our body, in our world. And so I think of them a bit like clouds. You see that sentence come in, and then you don't have to do anything. You can just let it drift on by. You don't have to ascribe any meaning or value or importance to it. And the fact is, the truth is you do that every day anyway. Our brain is a machine for making thoughts. It makes somewhere between 35,000 and 55,000 thoughts a day. And I imagine most of you could not recite out that list. Most of them we don't pay any attention to. It's just stuff that goes on up there. So notice that when thoughts really do affect us, they cause emotion to come up, it's because we're believing them. We're saying that that thought is important, it's true, I'm ascribing value to it. And the reason I'm bringing that up now is because with even more mindfulness practice, of course you can see the thought, and then you can choose to ascribe that value or that belief to it. You can choose to make it important or not. If you need to, you can just gently nudge it on its way. You can put it aside. You can think new thoughts on purpose. If you're willing to be present in the moment. So let me give you a couple of techniques, in fact, to help you be more mindful. Firstly, to get present. To do this idea, here's a little practice that will help you train in the skill of observing your thoughts. And the way I like to think about it is, imagine there are 3 boxes in your mind, 3 spaces. One of them is for thoughts, the sentences that come into our brain. One of them is for our feelings or emotions, the feeling that we have in our body. And one is simply for sensations. And that's the more physical sensations we have. So it's a sensation of touch from the weight of our body, or the touch of our clothes, the movement of air against our skin. Right. And I urge you for this technique to set a timer on your phone for a minute, maybe 2 minutes, or just allow yourself to sit whenever you're feeling flustered or whenever you're feeling caught up in your head. I'm just going to stop for a moment and I'm going to ask myself, what is going on for me right now? And step back and just notice what happens in your brain. And as things come in, just decide, all you have to do is not react to them, you're just going to name them as either a thought, a feeling, or a sensation. And you're just going to pop them into their appropriate box. Ah, that's a thought, that's a sentence in my mind. I'm feeling anxious, I'm feeling flustered. Oh, those are both feelings. Let's put them in the emotions box. Let's put them in the feelings. I'm hot, I'm cold. Sensations, put them in that box. Once again, all you have to do here is not ascribe any value to them, but just notice them, name them, and put them in their box, one at a time. What you'll find very quickly is you grab wonderful awareness about what is actually going on, and you'll realize that you don't actually have to respond to any thought, any feeling, any sensation. You can just name it and let it be. You'll also notice how quickly your brain moves on to the next one. It's a machine for making thoughts. It's going to move on of its own accord. So, very, very useful technique. Firstly, just to practice this awareness of becoming the watcher in our mind. So, practice the 3 boxes. For 2 minutes, you should notice that you're calmer, you're more centered. You've actually stepped out of the affect of the emotion in the moment. Because going into watcher mode, going into the observer of our thoughts, it's an emotionally neutral space. We can just step back out of whatever's happening and just notice it. Okay, so that's technique number 1, the 3 boxes. The other one I want to share with you today is about narrowing our focus from all of the visual stimulation, all the audio stimulation, all of the sensation, the input that's coming into our brain. Because by the way, it's overwhelming just how much we have going on in our bodies, how much information our brain is taking in at any moment. Which is why most of us develop really good filters for just trying to select out only what's important. It's why if you have an incident and have 10 witnesses, that all 10 will have a different interpretation of that same incident because they're all looking at it with their own filters. It's how we get into the world. It's how we go through the world every single day. So what we're going to do is we're going to look at the 5 sort of main senses, if you like. Now, I know there are more than 5 senses, but we're just going to play these 5. And the idea is to start from very wide, broad view and narrow it back down. So here's how it works. Again, we're going to spend just a couple of minutes, or as long as it takes to complete these tasks. So 5. I want you to stop and name 5 things you can see. Now, if that's too broad for you, pick a color, 5 things of a color. Or try and notice 5 things you wouldn't normally notice. How does the light reflect off the surfaces that you can see? How does it change the color of things? Where does the shadow fall? What's the texture of the thing you're looking at? What's something you wouldn't normally notice? See if you can name 5 things you can see. When you have that, what are 4 things you can hear? Might be helpful to close your eyes for this one, to think about what are 4 sounds that I can hear. Maybe there's traffic outside. Maybe there's birds chirping. For me, I can hear a plane flying over. What movement can you hear in the room? Okay, 4 things you can hear. Can you name 3 sensations of touch? Maybe the feel of your skin, or the feeling of the clothes against your body, movement of air. Can you feel the weight of your body resting into your shoes, into your feet, or onto the chair? Three sensations of touch. Can you name 2 different smells? Maybe there's a perfume or a cologne. Maybe there's something pleasant or unpleasant. 2 sensations of smell. And finally, what's 1 thing you can taste? Maybe you need a sip of water. Maybe there's an aftertaste in your mouth. It's coffee or breakfast or lunch, the last meal you ate. If there's nothing, open your mouth and breathe deeply. Can you taste anything on the air? Once you've named 5 things you can see, 4 things you can hear, 3 sensations of touch, 2 things you can smell, 1 thing you can taste, bring your awareness back to the moment. How many things did you just become aware of that you were not previously, that you hadn't thought about until perhaps I pointed them out? And how are you feeling right now? Most people find when we practice this technique that we feel calmer, more centered. Our breathing slows down, we relax. Notice how many things that we can pay attention to that we aren't otherwise. We really have come back to the moment. So I really urge you to play with these 2 mindfulness techniques, to practice the 3 boxes, the 5 senses. And notice that we went very wide in the world, out into what we can see, what we can hear. We brought it back in to what we can feel, to within our body. Then inside us, what we can smell, what we can taste. Came right back down to ourselves. Very useful if you're getting caught up in the world and in the moment, in the events going on. I really urge you to practice those, to use those tools. It can be as simple, remember, getting mindful, being present in the moment, can be as simple as taking a couple of deep breaths. If you are caught up in your head, you can get present again by writing it down. Write down everything that's going on for you right now. These are just a few techniques that can help you practice the art of mindfulness. And as you practice, you get better and better at stop living at the effect of everything that's going on. We stop living in reaction. We stop just responding with our socially conditioned responses or our habitual reactions. And instead, we get to choose our life deliberately, in the moment, as it happens. Which, remember, is the only moment we ever have. It is when the future plunges into the past, where we have that ability to transform our future, transform the path of our lives. It's there and available to us every moment. So what mindfulness practices do you use? And how will you use them this week to transform your life? Remember, at some point, we do have to let go of what we think should be happening or we thought should have happened, and actually have to live in what is happening. I encourage you to practice your mindfulness this week. Let me know in the comments what changes for you when you do. If you want more help transitioning into the life that you want to be living rather than the life that you have, then remember, you can always sign up for a free exploratory coaching session with me on my website. Go to livemorelife.com.au and click on free exploratory session. Fill in the form and I'll be in touch to help you out. Talk to you soon.